if you or somebody you know is caring for somebody, could be a loved one, spouse, family member, maybe you know somebody's doing the same thing. I don't have to tell you it's a challenge. And many times we can feel defeated. We can feel beat up. Finding even time for ourselves can be a challenge. How do you find the positivity in all of this? Little nuggets of joy, those happy little moments, whatever they may be, doesn't matter. We're going to talk about that today. And with help from somebody who coaches people on this, I never knew this existed until I met her. She is a life coach, but specifically a life coach for caregivers. She is Marika Humphreys, and she's back with us. How you doing today?
I'm doing well. Yes, we are. The weather is taking a turn finally. Like, I feel like it's definitely the end of summer now. And now we're starting to hit fall. So, which is actually one of my favorite times of year. So, doing well.
I try to find the joy, the happy moments in this time of year, and there's many of them. It's just knowing what's coming. I don't want to be negative, but I love fall as well, but I know what's coming, so that's why I gravitate towards summer being my favorite season, just
Right. You
because
when
it's
you say you know what's coming, you mean like winter? Is that what you're talking about? Yeah.
yeah,
Well, and because you're in New York City, right? So, is
outside
it
of, yeah.
okay? Is it like a harsh, really harsh winter?
It's cold. It's like,
It's cold.
daytime temps in the 30s, nighttime can get into the teens. It depends. Sometimes you have
Yeah.
warmer
Yeah.
winters. Um,
Yeah.
Certainly nothing like Tacoma. Um, where, I mean,
Yeah.
what do you think your average daytime temp is in the
Oh,
winter?
oh gosh, it's probably maybe 40.
Yeah.
Probably in the 40s. Yeah,
And,
it
and,
doesn't
and
get super cold here. It's rare for it to get in the teens. And I mean, I don't think we've ever gone, I don't know if it's
really,
ever gone below. Yeah.
well,
Yeah,
okay.
it's more temperate. It's just wet. It's wet. We've lots of water, which is a
Yeah.
good thing. But that can be, yeah.
Hmm.
For us, winters are the wet. It's just wet.
See,
Much of
New York is, I mean, there's plenty of sunny days and all of that, but at the same time,
yeah,
it could be, and we could average in the 40s. It's, if you
yeah,
took the entire winter and averaged it, I'm guessing it probably would be like 38. I don't know, I'm guessing,
yeah,
but it
yeah,
can go down to the teens and January, it can go down to the single digits. Been there, done
yeah,
that quite a few times. So
yeah.
now I know why you like fall, because it's never going to go below a certain level. So I get you. I get you there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Plus, I love the colors.
Oh,
That's one
sure.
of my favorite things. I love the trees, the changing colors. I love the crisp air and like putting on a sweatshirt and getting cozy and fireplaces, which I don't have. But if I did have one, I have had in the past. Those are some of the things that I like. Yeah,
Wow.
so that's kind of we can use this as a segue to talking about happiness or joy, and how to find that in caregiving. And I wanted to talk about this because a lot of times when I meet with people for the first time, I usually have I call it a consultation call, and I always ask them what are they struggling with most as a caregiver, what areas are they struggling with, and what do they want their life to look like, or how do they want it to be different, knowing that there's things about their caregiving that they can't change, right? They may not be able to change the fact that they're a caregiver, or some of the actual tasks that they do, but what do they want from that? And a lot of times people say, I just want to have some joy, or I just want to have some happiness. And it seems so simple and so reasonable. Like, I think that's what we all want. Um, it just can become harder when we become a caregiver, depending on the level of that. So I think it's worth talking about, how do you do that? What does that look like? And I think really the first part I want to make is that a lot of times in our culture, we sort of grow up with this idea that happiness is a destination, is something to acquire, or something we will get when we have the great job, when we meet the right person, when
Mm,
we get the, great house or perfect apartment. or, you know, achieve this thing, have this great, when we have the great closet of clothes or whatever it is, it's something we kind of have this idea that we will feel it when we have these things or when something external to us happens. And it is true. Like I actually just went my my teenager and I just went to the Cheesecake Factory for our like part of our back to school shopping trip, and I was having some of the leftover cheesecake this morning, by the way. That
Ah,
was. And as I was eating that, I'm like, oh my gosh, sugar is so good and it makes me happy. Like, we do feel that feeling with simple things like for me eating chocolate, or buying something that brings us joy. And that is true. We can get that emotion from those things. But also, ultimately, happiness is a feeling, and
hmm.
feelings come by how we think about things. So, the reason we feel great when, let's say, we get a promotion and we're like, that brings us happy, we feel happy, we're excited, we're proud of ourselves, it's because of how we're thinking about it. Um, so, that means that the power is always within us to feel happiness or joy, which is kind of crazy to think about. Like we all have that ability at any point in time. It's just maybe we're not used to practicing, I think, that skill of of creating happiness for us or finding happiness with where we are right now instead of waiting for kind of the thing to happen or something to come to us.
Would you say that, and it's interesting how we position this around caregiving, but I guess maybe it's also universal in finding joy and happiness, and then you apply it to the caregiving situation. But do you feel that to find that happiness and joy, you got to go from within? These things around us, yeah, they're great. Yeah, I love me my cheesecake too. Um, but do you find that you're really never going to be truly happy with anything unless you are inside? Maybe call it happy with yourself, found yourself, love yourself, if you will.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that is that's a practice. Some people do that more naturally, or perhaps they're raised that way, or whatever. I do think some people can tend to find that easier than others, and other people probably have the opposite challenge. Some people, again, are a little more negative or hard on themselves or more critical. We've talked about perfectionism lots of times, but either way, wherever you kind of land right now at this moment in time, it's a practice. So finding that satisfaction within yourself and then also seeing it in your life takes is just something that you can do consciously when you start thinking about it consciously. And I think, and that's I think that's the first really point is just that it is a choice and an action that we take, realizing that this is an emotion that we're all capable of feeling by how we think. So, how we think about ourselves, to your point, right? Feeling kind of contentment with ourself, which maybe that's where some of the work is if you're not feeling happy in your life or really struggling as a caregiver. Maybe there's things about yourself that you need to first address. Or finding it in our life. And I wanted to offer kind of to bring this to caregiving specifically, because yes, this is a universal human challenge. But when it comes to caregiving, I think finding the joy in your caregiving is a great place to start. And that may be really hard for some people, like really hard.
Mm-hmm.
And other people, maybe not so much. But for those that I find it really hard, I think that's where it's especially important because you really need to look for it because it is there. And
Mm.
joy may feel a little strong. I was thinking about this before coming on today. I was thinking about, I think we could replace that with satisfaction. Like what brings you satisfaction? something that you feel kind of good about being able to do, perhaps, helping someone maintain their dignity, in a hospital environment where you're often in sort of like, a flimsy gown and things hanging out of you and you feel like you're a mess. If you're caring for someone in that environment, like helping them feel better about themselves can bring satisfaction when we think about it that way. So, looking for the ways that you can find happiness in your role as a caregiver, I think is a great place to start.
Hmm. I've heard this term and seems to be a trending term, a glimmer, a glimmer.
Mm,
I experience a
yeah,
glimmer. So glimmer, I guess it comes from glimmer of hope, finding those little things like you just yeah, identified. Let's say you've helped somebody that you're caring for. Let's say change their diet with help from medical professional, whatever it might be, and now they're doing better. It's like, oh, you know what? I got that done. Things are there's a plus. Bing, put the little check mark up there. Um, do you feel it many times in the caregiving role that we jump down that rabbit hole of understandable negativity. Yeah, I gotta do this, and then they're not happy,
yeah,
and then I'm doing this, and I didn't take care of myself, and on and on and on and on, and we forget to look for the glimmers. Do you think that happens?
yeah. As you were saying that, I thought, so much of it is celebrating our little successes, and that's the glimmer that you talked about, like noticing it, just noticing it, and that is something. I mean, I still feel like I need to work on this in my own life. Just noticing and celebrating my own small wins in whatever, in my business, in my, life, something I'm working towards. But I think that's important part of caregiving because, again, understandably, there is a lot of ways to see all the negative or the hardship or the energy it takes or the challenges, and but there are wins in there too. There are little glimmers of things that you've contributed to that you can feel that just by noticing, and also some taking credit for, right? Like you mentioned, like, hey, I helped them change their diet, or I was thinking like one of my clients recently, as her husband was struggling and, really nearing the end of his life, she really wanted to be his kid. I mean, gave her, that was something he wanted, and also gave her satisfaction to be able to do. And it was hard to do that, as especially as his voice, like his physical abilities declined rapidly and he couldn't speak anymore for himself. And so people, like caregivers sort of the kind of looked over him and wouldn't talk directly to him, but she knew he was, his mind was still there. He was still there. And so for her, really advocating for that was something that brought, was important to her and also brought satisfaction. And we were recently talking about it, just like giving herself credit that she worked hard to do that. And she did it. She achieved that to a huge amount at, it was not easy. So
Hmm.
those are the ways that we celebrate. I mean, even things that are really hard, but I think it's just important to just give yourself some recognition for that. And we don't do that a lot. I think especially in caregiving, we don't do that. We want others, and a lot of times we want others to do that for us. We want others to pat us on the back or to say, again, we've talked about this too before, appreciate us. But I think it's more powerful when we do it for ourselves.
Hmm.
That's where we generate that internal feeling of satisfaction and contentment and, happiness.
Do you, and I'm asking this personally. This is how I operate. I like to have things to look forward to. Just
Yeah.
makes me feel good. It's like, let's say you work hard. It's like, yeah, well, I got that coming up this weekend. That's going to be fun. That's all right. And it could be anything. It's looking for the glimmer. It could be, you
Yep.
know what? I'm going home today. I'm gonna barbecue a steak. Really good one. Haven't had one in a long time. I'm being hypothetical here.
Yeah. Yeah. That
But if
sounds good,
that
actually.
I honestly haven't done it in a long time. But if that's something that makes you feel good, Do you operate that way where you look forward to those things and it's almost as if that helps you move along a little bit further? Like some people say, just looking forward to vacation. Vacation could be 6 weeks away, it could be, 2 months away, but it's on your radar. So you're kind of like working toward it. Do you
Yeah,
adopt that?
I do. And I think what's useful is an understanding why that works. Why you
I don't
like to
know.
have something
I just bring
and
it up.
it's because of where your brain is focused, right? And vacation is a great one. I'm actually going to take a little weekend trip in a couple weeks and just to, like a place a couple hours away, but I've never been there. And it's got lots of, neat things to see and breweries to check out and whatever. So the why that works to when we look forward to something is because our brain focuses on all the anticipation and all the good things we're thinking about, especially when it's something fun, a vacation or a trip.
Hmm.
So that is, and just I want to point that out because that ability to zoom in and direct your focus on, in this case, something that's upcoming, it prolongs the joy. And sometimes it's even more the joy um of the holiday is in the anticipation of it. You're thinking
Absolutely.
about all the things, you're thinking about being off work, you're thinking about, just sleeping in or whatever, staying in this great hotel or going to see these places. Because so you're directing your mind to something that's enjoyable. But you can do that in a much smaller way as well, as opposed to kind of waiting for to have a trip. And that's a great, I mean, I feel like that's still a great thing to do. It can be little things like looking forward to, taking a long walk this weekend or like going home and, cooking that steak that you haven't had. But also it can still be, I think, learning to do it with things that you're doing already, where it doesn't have to be something special, quote unquote, um, with what you're already doing. Like, if you can find, let's say that you have to, help your loved one feed themselves. I was like literally just hearing about a woman who's, her husband he can like barely hold a spoon, but his physical abilities have just declined.
Sure.
And that is not a simple thing. I mean, it's not an easy thing, let's just say. But can you find some satisfaction in that? I think that is a super powerful. If you can get to where you start looking for, how can I find satisfaction in these tasks that may be very challenging to do? And where is it? I mean, you might have to be creative, but that I think is even more powerful because it doesn't rely on kind of having something always in the works. Um, it's switching your brain to look for it in your common everyday piece. And maybe there is something that you need to add to your life. Like maybe you do need to think about ways that you can, if your life feels too out of balance, ways that you can kind of get energy. But where can you find it just from what you're already doing? I think that
Hmm.
would be, I mean, it's not easy. If it was, we would just do it all. But I want to just challenge people to think about that because I think um, that's where the power comes. And that's how we truly take ownership of our own happiness,
So
our
I
own
want I want to
satisfaction.
share this. I heard this recently. Been trying it. Um, it's called the 17-second rule. And it's,
Hmm.
not scientifically documented or
Yeah,
anything,
yeah.
but um, those who are intuitive, those who are, call them experts in mindset and all of that,
Uh,
the concept is to think of something that makes you feel good. Could be anything. Could be vacation, that feeling that you have,
yeah,
that feeling, oh, I'm going on vacation. Can't wait.
yeah,
Can't wait. It's gonna be so great. Or it could be when you got your first car, that feeling, just like, oh, this is great. I can't wait. I'm looking forward to going driving. Could be when you first met your partner. That
yeah,
feeling. Think of that feeling and hold that feeling for 17 seconds. Got to be 17 seconds. That's a sweet spot. Don't have the answer why. That's what they say.
yeah,
And if you continually do that, you will refocus your attention and you'll start looking toward more positive outcomes for your life because positivity attracts positivity. So if you can keep doing that, and not all the time, I know it's not easy, but when
Yep.
you're day and you're just sitting there and you're just having a thought, it's like, vacation, huh? Think about that. What that feels like. 17 seconds. They say it can really change your life.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're simply, what we do repeatedly.
Yes.
There's a great quote, which I'm not going to know, I'm not going to be able to say accurately, but basically it goes with we are a result of our habits, of the things we do repeatedly.
For
And I
sure.
think that's why that works. And that
Yeah.
when you practice, and I love that for multiple reasons, but really zooming in and spending some time in a positive emotion like that is powerful, and it lets you kind of soak it in, and also you get familiar with how it feels. Well, often we do that kind of with our negative emotions. We spend too much time in
Yes.
the negative emotion and not with feelings, with positive feelings. And by doing it with something that is easy and accessible like that, like you mentioned, cultivating, bringing back the memory of when you first met your person, or
hmm
the first time you drove, you got that new car, whatever that
Whatever it is.
time is that you can bring that very vivid feeling back and then holding it in your body is like you're practicing that, and you're going to practice staying in that place as opposed to where we
Yeah.
find ourselves a lot of
Yeah.
times with challenges
Yeah.
is in the negative emotions.
I,
that's
I, I
that's
just think
great.
we're programmed to be negative. It's just that it is our nature, maybe to protect ourselves or, evolutionary wise, to
Yeah.
protect us. And I'll be honest, like I had like a meditation session with somebody, and I'm going to make this really short, but they had me focus on this object. It could be any object, doesn't matter. It's just like a
Yeah.
little squishy ball. I focused on it. I just stared at it, blocked everything else out, and it brought me back to when I was in my 20s and the things I used to do. I used to go jogging on a high school track, not even my own. I used to go to another high school, loved the track, put on my Walkman, age alert here, Walkman, and I would just listen to music. I would jog around the track, then I go backwards, like literally run backwards, like woohoo, it's great. I remembered the songs I was listening to. Then I had a flashback around the same age of looking at of being a DJ. I would make tapes up. I would have fun every Saturday morning. I'd go back to my mom's and it was like it was just fun. It was fun. But it reminded me of that feeling that I had, and what it said to me was, dude, go back to those things you enjoyed or those things that made you feel good when you were younger, because there wasn't a care in the world. It's just maybe there
Yeah.
was, but I didn't remember them. All I remember was the
Yeah.
good stuff. So
Yeah.
that feeling is my 17 seconds, my current
Yeah.
17 seconds. So remember them. They're there. And I think it's like what you were saying. How does it go? Your attention goes where your focus goes. So if
Yeah.
you're focusing on negative stuff, guess what's coming your way? Negative
Yeah.
stuff. That's where your attention is. Uh,
Yeah.
by the way, as a caregiver, I know this isn't easy. I get it.
Yeah.
I
Yeah, and I that's crazy too, that the way you got there was just by essentially clearing your mind, right? By focusing on something, you kind of cleared out all the other things. But I think you could also do a brainstorm, like literally in 3 minutes, brainstorm and write a list of all the things, all your memories from the past, all the ways that you just things you enjoy, and just start brainstorming and go
yeah.
back to when you were a child, literally like when you were a child. I remember also in college, so and you and I are probably around the same age, but I remember carrying when that we went from the cassette players to the CDs, and then you had portable, like a portable disc player. Right? I remember running with that in college and like carrying it and jogging. I went to college in Washington, D.C. So I remember running along the Potomac, listening to music and just like loving that I was here in the nation's capital, and it was so exciting. And yeah, just going back to those moments from your past, and then figuring out how can you bring some of that into your current life. What was it? Caregiving, can you listen to music while you're doing some of the things, like ways to just change up your and bring that feeling to
Yeah.
your present day.
Just
That's
positivity,
great.
and anything in life. Find the joy. Find the joy.
Yeah.
How does somebody connect with you, Marika? This is, for many, new territory potentially as a caregiver, and especially finding joy when you're deep in the weeds, if you will, of caregiving. Uh, Not always easy. Totally get it. How do we find
Yeah.
you?
Yeah, it is challenging. Yeah, find me on my website. It's coachmarika.com, www.coachmarika, and that's Marika. And on that website, you will find link to my podcast, which I talk kind of basically more in depth on all of these things that we've talked about here, really focused on people who are caregiving. And you can also set up a consultation with me there. I coach online, so I coach anywhere in the world, which is a great thing, great feature of today's world. And yes, check out the
Love it.
website.
Um, Thank you for making those in a caregiving role feel that they're not alone.
Yeah,
Appreciate that. Yeah.
yeah,
There is somebody that's been through it and wants to help you. And Marika, by the way, spelled Marika. Start a conversation and find
yeah.
your joy. Thanks for being here today. Appreciate it.
All right. Thanks, Steve.
Thank you. We'll be right back.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house.
And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned.
This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.